one of the things that's important to see about effectuation is it doesn't start with that moment of aha, that clear goal or anything else. It starts with the things that you have and lets you work toward building a goal with the people who commit to working with you.
The bird in hand principle is commonly where things start. It has to do with, specifically, as the entrepreneur and the team founding a thing, who am I? What motivates me? What sort of identity do I express as I go about my work? What do I know? What background information and knowledge do I have about the world? And whom do I know? What are the relationships that I have to people and expertise and other sorts of things that I might need as I want to go co-create the future?
Every human being has these three baskets of resources. And one of the things that I've found when I ask people to consider what they have is that they start out saying, I have nothing. And by the time they actually get to look at it, they realize, wow, I actually have an enormous set of resources, things that I can begin to work with right away.
So the bird in hand principle teaches you to divide things into things within your control and things not within your control, and always work with things that are already within your control.
So when you start with yourself, you start with your means, with all your assets, the things that you have that are totally unique to you, that could be the foundation of something really different based because of that.
So why start with what you have? There are two reasons. Number one is that you can get going right away. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you $10 million or to create a cure for cancer. What you have is readily available to you. And the second thing is, it gives you an advantage. The things that you have are unique to you, and so they provide you with differentiation compared to everybody else.
There is a tendency to discount what you have. So most entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs, they don't even realize the assets they are sitting on.
So let's think about specific means, right? Let's start with what are some means that you might have.
Like some examples would be your education, what you know, who they know, your talents, things that you're interested in. That's most of them.
In effectuation, when you think about the bird in hand, you really are thinking about who am I? What kinds of things do I find interesting? What kinds of values are really important to me and therefore non-negotiable? What are some things within my control in terms of knowledge resources? What are some things that I already know about, but I also know someone who knows about if I do not know it? So the categories of means we look at are who am I, what do I know, and whom do I know? And then what do I have is a function of these three things, because what do I have can change if I can use my imagination to put together who I am, what I know, and whom I know.
There are also intangible assets that can be part of your means. That can be experiences you've had. So if you are a traveler and have knowledge of a certain culture or a certain area or a certain region, that can be a huge competitive advantage for you. Or it can be an experience you've had maybe as an athlete, or a certain technical skill set, or membership to a certain technical team. Those are all fundamental assets that you can build on in creating a new venture.
But the interesting thing about the bird in hand principle done well and done with imagination is that you see means where they do not exist. When we start thinking about what are the resources that I have available to start a venture or to do something else, our mind naturally falls into certain categories that we see as resources. But the bird in hand principle can be applied in a slightly different, more interesting way. You can actually look around you and look at anything and everything you see, and you can ask yourself, what is not a resource here?
And when you're trying to hit that goal, what happens is you're looking for means, you're looking for things that you don't have to get there. Right?
In effectuation, the goals are kept open and you're tied to your means. You say, okay, these are all my constraints. I have this much money or this much time, and I'm in this location, and I have these preferences, and I don't want to do that. And so given that, what can I do?
To be means driven is to prefer opportunities that are expressive of your means and to be willing to be flexible on the goals.
So it changes one from an acquisitive mindset or the idea that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, I have to have, whether it's venture funding or capital or know somebody in New York or Silicon Valley. It removes all of that and says, I can be a successful entrepreneur using whatever it is I have on hand.
When you think causally and you start with a big goal at the top, you either achieve your goals or not. Whereas when you think effectually and work with bird in hand, your goals may change all the time. And because goal change is part of the process, you keep moving forward.
Again, a common tension in many early entrepreneurs is, what should I do today? Right? And if you're goal driven and you make that list of what all you need to do or what all you need to have in order to do the first thing you need to do, then you keep postponing the thing to do because you don't have the things you need to do it.
The other advantage of working with means is that doing something different with something you already have is easy, right? You already have it. You just use it differently.
If I'm making soup and I have these 5 things and I need to make soup now, I can only make soup with what I have.
When you're goal-oriented, if you have a fixed goal and you realize, oh, I don't have that means to make this goal happen, you now have to revert and say, how am I going to go about acquiring those means?
And if I wanted to make soup with these 5 things, then I'd have to go to the shop and get 10 other things to make soup.
And you're no longer in pursuit of the goal. You're now in pursuit of the acquisition of the means. And oftentimes you just get stuck.
Maybe I shouldn't be making soup with these things.
So if you stay means-driven, you can act much more quickly.
Maybe I should just be making a salad.
It's simply easier to repurpose things you already have.
If I look at these 5 things and say, this is good for a salad, let's have salad.
The idea here is you are more likely to do something today because you're not chasing means. You're actually trying to build something from day one.
We know from research that more than 90% of ventures aren't even doing the idea or aren't pursuing the opportunity they started out to pursue.
Bird in hand in terms of goals and means need not be whether you have a goal or not. But when push comes to shove, are you just sticking to your goal and then chasing means to achieve them? Or are you saying I can be flexible on the goals, but I still only want to work with things within my control because they're within my control and I can actually get them done?
The more often you're asking, what else can I do with my means? That's to be means-driven. Is more effectual than saying, well, because I have this goal, what means do I need to go get? That would be much more causal.
And pretty much everything we do comes from that asset first, bird in hand first viewpoint.
And the bird in hand always says goal change is a means that is available to you.
And that's the fundamental difference between a means-driven approach, which leads you to a goal, versus a goal-driven approach, which leads you to collecting means or resources which are specific to that goal.